Good morning. My name is Shivnath, and this session is about creative ideas of doing business and driving business profitability 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So there's a bit of a background to this topic which I wanted to kind of share with everyone. I was talking to Amitabh of Images and the organizer of the India Retail Forum, and his worry is everybody's talking about their brand, everybody's talking about what to do next in their business, but nobody's worried about the fact that they have to do it all the time. It's no longer a Saturday, Sunday business. It is no longer a post 8 o'clock, you can pack up and go home because somebody's hitting your website or hitting your stores or wanting to hit the stores at least at midnight. I'm sure some anxious fathers and mothers would like a toy from Hamleys at midnight. So the backdrop to this discussion is, what are we doing to make sure that businesses are aware that the need or the desire for their product comes through 24/7, 365 days a year, floods, no floods, everybody wants to consume. And secondly, to do that, you have to deploy more resources. So how do you drive business profitability? And thanks, Deepak, for bringing that whole focus back on in our review discussion that we were doing. So I will open the floor by asking Sudhir, because I think he has the maximum scope for being unconventional. I'm assuming everybody knows what Hamleys does in the country, right? Anybody who does not know, please raise your hand. What Hamleys does? Anybody doesn't know what Hamleys does? So you've got a good brand fit. Everybody knows what Hamleys does. So that's good. So Sudhir, let me ask, the whole starting point of this would be, to each one of you, give me one unconventional idea that you are adopting to capture that 24/7, 365 days a year, unconventional, quirky, and I know you have a lot of scope to do that.
I will tackle this slightly differently. When it's all about, I think it's unconventional necessarily does not mean that you got, anything to be different. Yes, you need to actually create a unique value proposition and very distinct differentiators which make you significantly different from the other retailers either in the same space or across the categories, because you are ultimately, you're not only competing for the share of the wallet within your own space or within your own domain, but also I think to an extent with the other categories which are there present in the same mall or wherever retail hub, wherever you are. In our case, answering Shivnath's question directly, if there is one unique thing that we sort of try and focus on, it's, essentially as a brand, we are all about demonstration, theater, and magic. It's all about creating theater. It's all about creating that drama once you're inside the store. So we continue that or within the store as well as sometimes try and take it outside. So creating a unique event is something which we sort of try and focus on. And that's very specifically answering this question. We have a calendar of events which is already firmed up at the beginning of the year. And you know precisely what kind of entertainment activities and other activation on the floor you're getting into doing. Out of that, we try and focus, we always sort of consciously decide that there are at least 2 or 3 big ticket items which we either do entirely ourselves or more often in conjunction with the other brands, other licensees or other, our prime business associates, our partners, vendor partners. With them, we sort of try and work it out. I mean, I'll give you a very small example. Now, we did this mega event called Building a Fire Truck with Lego. I'll just tell you this much. We had about 3,000 children, along with their parents, participating in the courtyard of High Street, Phoenix, building that massive fire truck brick by brick, using the Lego bricks. Imagine, 197,000 bricks were used over a period of 4 days to build that largest ever fire truck. Now, this kind of event hits any country, once a year. Lego has a choice of going to South Africa or to somewhere else. That year we were able to grab them, and the response was absolutely phenomenal. Not only that, see, Lego is a cult brand. We tried to work that Hamleys is presenting this kind of unique ever event, and this is something which is going to create that excitement because the mall is happy. Imagine getting that space from somebody like, I'm sure he'll have another question, in terms of how do you work closely with the developers of the malls and those retail hubs. Yes, so this is an example that we actually got that space from High Street Phoenix without paying anything for it. I mean, I'm sure there's nobody from the mall here, but Pankaj, I have revealed the top secret, but there's nothing about it because it's ultimately a question of what kind of relationship you have built with the mall and how much does the mall see you as bringing in those crowds by creating that unique event, okay? And then at the end of it all, can you imagine a whole fire engine came into the mall, actually into the courtyard, and the Mumbai fire service people actually talking to the kids and telling them about the safety from fire and all of that. So it was a learning development also.
As Deepak pointed out to me, very rightly so, I will ask you whether that unconventional idea was profitable at the end of the day. You got 3,000 kids in 4 days, 1,000 kids a day almost. Did you eventually convert it into a sale, or was it just a marketing event at, you couldn't care less about profitability, because eventually it was about the hype that you managed to create?
Not really. I think every business, I think the underlying principle is you've got to make money, otherwise you are not in business. As simple as that. So here when we did this Lego event, the kind of response at the store for buying those Lego sets and the more expensive ones was absolutely phenomenal. We have absolutely, I think, sold 4 or 5 times of what we would have sold in a normal time. Not only during this 4 days, but people kept coming. You know, and that's the kind of profile of customers.
So interesting. So you managed to get the mind space of kids, which is 3,000 kids over 4 days. You got the space for free, so profitability was pretty much sorted, and you sold 3 to 4 Lego sets, I guess, every hour or whatever you did. And they're not cheap, they're quite expensive. So eventually you appealed to the parents as well as the kids. It was a good 24/7, 365 kind of initiative, but it was lasting only 4 days. So Javier, let me come to you, and which is where the whole stickiness argument is about bringing those people back again and again. You cannot do a Lego kind of an event, which Sudhir may have done. Movies is a very different business. Cinepolis itself is it's a larger ecosystem in itself. What's your game plan to get that mind space 24/7, 365? Tell us one unconventional idea that you may have thought of. This was quite interesting what Sudhir just narrated to us.
So I guess that the tricky part about your question is the unconventional of the idea. Because I believe that any unconventional idea becomes conventional once you do it, right? And some things that across the cinema industry have been used and now are very conventional, but I believe it was a game changer back in time, is the ability of changing the ticket price throughout the week, right? So we are more than other businesses a weekend business. The weekend could be 60% of the footfalls that we get throughout the week. Having said that, on the weekdays, now a Tuesday morning, I mean, the occupancy is very low, but the price for the ticket is completely different. And so I believe that we play that lever of price, giving flexibility to attract different crowd that otherwise wouldn't be probably able to come to the cinema at all. We also have differentiated price on Wednesdays, so Wow Wednesday, in which the ticket price could be half of what it is throughout the week.
So pricing is a tool for you, but in your business, as you said, it's a weekend business. So if I take you back to the topic of creating ideas, how do you look at this entire business plan from a 7-day, 24/7 kind of a, or is it like your business is an impossible business to target 24/7, 365 days a year?
No, I guess at the end, everything converges into the online and the internet-based kind of entertainment. You have to think outside the box, but within the sandbox of your mission and vision. So if we are in the entertainment business, which cinema exhibition is part of the entertainment that you provide to the customer, but we have tried other ideas on online streaming in other countries, in other territories, to be present on the customer's mind and devices 24/7, 365 days a week. So if that's within our mission, but it's outside the brick and mortar business of cinema exhibition itself.
So, fine. So you bring in the technology layer, and I'm going to throw it to all of you to talk about the how, from a capital deployment online, how critical that is. I'll come to that, but let's get another brand and see what we have from Lakme Lever. Pushkaraj, we've been speaking at the Retail Forum for the last few years, and we've talked about conventional ideas, different formats. In your case as well, the need of your service, the kind of business that you're in, may not be every time I enter a mall ecosystem or a real estate play. But then to get somebody in 24/7 to capture that mind space, what are you trying? What are the different things that you've been experimenting with?
So first, the context, we are not a product business. We are a service business. Right. We are a business about people. So for us, utilizing the people and their productive time is most important. So rather than 24/7, what's really important is that all our people, all the experts in the salons are gainfully employed, right? And the impact on profitability is twofold. Either you use that time to skill them. So we use a lot of the lean hours to upskill, to teach them new services. Or then we play with portfolio, place and price. And let me give you a few examples. So how we play with portfolio is that we create new services which are offered only during certain hours. These are typically lengthy services, and blocking of experts during peak hours might not be the best utilization. So we do that. We also have now started doing salon parties, right? So we have like you have kitty parties in restaurants. You have a bunch of women coming in, having a good time in our salons, and then obviously looking good at the end of it. We do a lot of events. Rather than invent new events, we are a brand which stands for runway excellence every day, and the attempt is to recreate the backstage of Lakme Fashion Week alive in the salons. So a lot of our events that we do to drive footfalls, especially during off-peak hours, are around recreating the backstage of Lakme Fashion Week in the salon. So we get our experts from the backstage, do consultation rounds, do special services. We also get designers in some type of salon. So we have Lakme Absolute salons, which are the more premium ones. And there we are doing a whole fest called Runways of the World, where we get the most trending services from across the world, and we are using that.
So in a way, you have redefined 24/7. By nature of it, 24/7 has to be broken up into different parts and treated differently.
And the irony of our business is when I would say 90% of people in this room are really busy during the end of season sale. That's really lean time for us, because no one really wants to visit a salon. They are really busy in
buying stuff
or lifestyle or wherever, trying to get the best discount out. So there again, we play with portfolio, because we know what happens to the pretty women at that point in time. Their feet just give way. So we have a pedicure that we launched only during that time, which is called the end of season sale pedicure. It basically has about 20 minutes extra massage in it, and it really works well for them. And also
so you basically have to define 24/7 based on the shopper's lifestyle.
Absolutely.
And go for whenever they are lean or they are free, they are feeling a little lazy, you go and rejuvenate them.
Absolutely. The idea is to stay very close to your consumer and find out why they are not coming, and if the reason is end of season sale, then try and solve that problem.
All these methods profitable?
Sorry?
All these methods are profitable?
Absolutely. So they basically focus on utilization of staff time, and we don't really go into extended hours on that. So whether we use that lean hour to train, upskill, and therefore deliver better service during the peak hours, or we create events, create new portfolio services. We also have a happy hours, but I think that's a pretty conventional thing now.
Right.
It's basically going towards utilizing the lean hours.
So you've taken the price discounting that Javier was talking about to a different level, because you have to capture the mind space of the shopper or the consumer of your service. Deepak, let me come to you. All these people have talked about different ideas, unconventional ideas. You help them design some of these, implement some of these. How have you seen businesses, or how rapidly have the businesses adapted to that multitasking approach of the customer now? They are doing everything all the time, on the phone, talking, also shopping, sometimes online. I'll bring in the technology layer later. And I will, of course, have Pramod talk about where capital is looking at it. But in terms of designing or adaptability of the brands, how satisfied are you? Are they on top of the game? What are your inputs on that?
Yeah, I strongly believe that while, most of the clients, the customers, the retailers at the top end are very well traveled, they've seen the world, they know what's happening, they want to do just what they see while they're traveling here in their formats here. If you ask me in terms of happiness, no, I'm not happy at all. Why? Probably they're not getting the right support. Probably, they're not getting the right people, they're not getting the right companies, the right support systems to help them convert those dreams into realities, and that could be one probable cause. But Shivnath, I'd like to add one thing. When we spoke about uniqueness, and a little off this, but back to your first question, and we spoke about uniqueness in terms of customer connect and how can you do it differently. I'd like to take reference from two chains of stores in the UK, and so one of them is Poundland, and the other one is 99 pennies. So Poundland was is a very successful format in the UK, and they're doing extremely well. And then from somewhere there comes a store called 99 pence, and they price everything 1 pence cheaper. So every time a 99 pence store opened, bang opposite or right next to a Poundland, their stores were crowded from day one. People just went bought. And over 20, 30, 40, 50 stores that they did, they realized that the peak was only when the stores opened, and then it just fizzled out and people went back to the Poundland and they stopped shopping at the 99. And that's where we come back into the detail of the consumer connect. Okay, where was the flaw? Okay, Poundland was focused on customer service. And how did they do that? So in the UK, you have a toll-free system. Every time you want to make a complaint, you call on the toll, and that's chargeable. Okay, so you pay heavy fees to talk to a customer service representative. 99 cents had 99 pence had a chargeable toll-free customer service line. Poundland kept it for free. Okay, so connect, customer service, keeping them always on top. They were charging 1 cent. The merchandise was almost the same, but you'll always see more crowd now at the Poundland than at the 99 cents.
So it is not the customer who was teaching them, it was a rival business that was teaching them of different ideas, which is always good. But do you think Indian retailers are beginning to play that game? You initially said you're not happy. I mean, how would you want them to adapt in terms of the ideation game or the creative thinking that goes behind capturing the mind space 24/7?
I think one of the best ways are events like these. The IRF is a huge catalyst to bring these thoughts, these companies together. Where there's an idea and there's somebody who can deliver. You bring them together. See the. I'm sorry. Bring them together. See the. The belief or the dream that the retailer has to implement what he would like to do and connect with the companies out here. So I think once that connect happens, which it's all happening, it's on the go, it's on the move, and that should get everybody happy.
Right. Interesting. Someone who thinks there's a better potential. Pramod, I know your new avatar is only about 3 to 5 days old, as you said. He used to be. Can I quote your former avatar? So Pramod used to be pretty much in the similar business as Javier. He was a group president of PVR. Now he's joined Everstone Capital. So now his job is to make sure to deploy capital to people or to the side where he used to belong to. Pramod, but tell me, you must have made a switch thinking that there is enough money to make. You must have made the switch thinking that capital deployed in the right format, right kind of brands who are doing this thinking of 24/7, 365. What additional layer of thinking does capital bring in? Because sometimes capital has to be burned to get that 24/7 approach, which is what we are seeing in the online business, right? People are just burning cash. Somebody said, I will think of making money when I reach 20 million, 40 million, not at 10 million. How is capital viewing this entire game?
So, if you look at it, the objective out here, and unfortunately, I would disagree with a couple of things out here, which a lot of panelists did end up saying. It's the irrational, unconventional thought process, which has its experimental nature in itself to try out new things, which has a very high failure rate. So in effect, if I was to suggest that a brand is trying for 10 new initiatives which are innovative, to some extent irrational also, since they've never been tried and there's no rationality behind them, probably what really happens is 8 of them may end up failing. The 2 that succeed make much more than the 8 that failed. It will be about 20 times or 100 times or 500 times of the losses that may have been incurred from the 8, the profits would basically zoom up from those 2 initiatives. So in an investment portfolio, you look for brands who are basically constantly experimenting. They are looking at that 360-degree approach of ever-increasing circles in terms of taking innovative approach, and are happy to take an objective of delayed gratification, because instant gratification, as you just suggested, 1,000 consumers on the same day, building that Lego truck, may be applicable to a business like that of yours, may not be applicable to a business like that of Javier or someone else. Maybe even in Pankaj's space, there are certain innovations that end up happening in the real estate space also as well. So there is a concept of delayed gratification. How does an entrepreneurial or a professional approach go towards delayed gratification and look at holding on to these initiatives, which finally may bring in the moolah that one is looking at from the business. In my earlier stint in the cinema side of the business, which probably happens to be the case now also, wherein we would be looking at investing into cinema businesses. What Deepak does probably is the creating experiential spaces. So if you look at cinemas today, they as a brand are still selling a much higher level of a brand. A Shah Rukh Khan would always be a bigger brand than the cinema that is showing him onto the screens. It will always be the case. Now what really happens is a Shah Rukh Khan film or a very big blockbuster 10-pin film comes in, it's going to be successful in every possible cinema across the country, in the nooks and crannies, in any possible dilapidated situation it may be. Where this industry basically ends up lacking is that there are only 10% of the films which make 90% of the profits. The balance 90% of the films only make 10% of the revenues, not profits. Now, the cinemas or the spaces which happen to be blockbuster cinemas and give a feeling of an experiential thought process are the ones who end up making more money in those 90% of the films. And those are the ones which basically would succeed in the long run. Because in that 10% of the films which are blockbuster films, every TDH is making money. The 90% of the films wherein people are not making money, and if you can create, instead of thinking about blockbuster films only, can create blockbuster cinemas, those 90% of the films would end up giving you more money than your competitor is making, and that's where the money lies. So when you're looking at an investment portfolio, these are the things which you'll strategically look at. Does the entrepreneur or does the people behind that operation have it in them or not? Pricing, a dynamic pricing, all these are probably byproducts. How are you innovating in your thought process?
I mean, it's a larger game. It's not like pricing is just a tool. Okay, so good point to bring in Pankaj, Retail Services MD with JLL. My question to you would be, you have to work with retailers all the time. Probably have a outlook, the way Pramod has saying, how willing are they to experiment, how bold are they. But I also want to bring in a layer of questioning for you is the nature of relationship that the real estate play has with the retail brand. It's a larger ecosystem. Sometimes that ecosystem can define how profitable both of them are, the people you advise from a real estate point of view and then the retail brands. How has that nature of relationship changed according to you? Because I was telling them that 0809, we all moved from these long-term leases to more of revenue share because everybody wanted to make money, and then suddenly we changed gears. Do you see brands are changing gears all the time to make sure that ecosystem is successful and profitable?
Absolutely, Shivkant. And what's happened is there is a certain level of degree of maturity which has come into the retail business over the last 5-6 years, because I think in these 5-6 years between 2004 particularly, and I would say a decade between 2012, we've seen 2 cycles of real estate up and down, which probably nobody had seen in India. We had only seen a slow upward growth. And in these 10 years itself, we've seen 2 cycles of downward and upward trend. And particularly so, it's affected the retail business substantially because what we've seen is the retail stock and a lot of retailers moving out of business, a lot of newer ones coming in, a lot of retail stock getting churned, quality stock getting retained, and non-quality stock not getting absorbed. And good case in point in Gurgaon, there were like a mile long of malls which was lying and still lying vacant till date. So there's a fair sense of maturity which has come between these 2 groups. What we find is that today, a retailer is a lot more open to talking about experimenting his business and customizing to a local market condition as well. So for example, if a mall is in a certain district which has got a catchment which is different probably from a different part of the market, and if the developer recommends saying that I am building 5,000 apartments here and there are 20,000 apartments around and the customer profile is X, of those brands, can you tweak your business model to cater to these markets as well? I'm not asking you to change your complete business model. Can you do something different? Like we've seen specifically with the F&B retailers as well. I was speaking to a very large international brand, F&B chain, which is a lot, about 50% of the sales comes from alcohol and 50% comes from F&B. So it's a very hardcore alcohol-driven thing. And he wanted to go into Ahmedabad. So I said, what will you do in Ahmedabad for that matter? 50% of your sales come from alcohol, and typically when the person comes to you is not coming in for the food. He's typically coming in a mindset, listen, I'm going to drink silly myself and party with my friends and going to have food as well. He says, Pankaj, I will go into a market where nobody else has gone, and I will go talk to a mall developer and saying, I will create my menu which is done without the alcohol, but still gives them that experience of that market, because it's typically a lot more vegetarian. It's typically a lot about, obviously we can't serve alcohol. But why deny that experience of somebody in Ahmedabad, or the youngster or the young family who wants to go out and have a great evening out? I will still do the same amount of music. I will do probably 50 different kinds of mocktails for that matter. And secondly, also is I'm opening doors to a wider market for myself also. So today, there are these ideas which the retailers are willing to work, and the developers
just
also.
Just a quick interruption. Did he actually come in?
So he is working with it.
Okay,
it's just been very recent.
So he's still sticking to going into a prohibition-led state to serve alcohol kind of experience, but no alcohol.
No alcohol. Because he's saying, I'll get the first mover advantage in that market. Secondly, it gets me a road space of going into a market which will give me an opportunity to do that as well. So there is, and so when we work with mall developers, also on the other side, we find they also would want to understand. Today, a couple of years back, when you used to structure the deals with retailers, the question was, how much rent are you going to pay? What is your brand? What do you sell? Nobody used to understand and ask, what is the kind of segment of customers are you looking at? What is the growth path? How much is the time you're going to rotate your stock? How different are you going to be another store in that city nearby which could cater to the same segment as well? So developers are asking more relevant questions because they know that the customer is going to come back to them for the stickiness. Secondly, they're also experimenting with spaces. Like we were working with a shopping mall which is in a very high density of office district. And we realized is that why would India not change? We still go back because probably we have help at home. We typically end up eating breakfast at home because there's a mother, there's a wife, and there's the bai who's there to cook breakfast, and we just walk into office. But it's a question of time when people will want to pick up breakfast in the morning or pick up a cup of coffee and then walk into their office. Typically, when you go into a shopping mall today, it opens at 11 o'clock. They start opening, cleaning at 10 o'clock, 10:30. I landed up in a shopping mall at 10:30. I was staying in a city, and it was a prime sit in part of the city. I couldn't get breakfast in the hotel. I had an early morning meeting, but I wanted to pick up something. And I went to the shopping mall. The coffee shop was closed at 10:30 in the morning. The guy said the doors open at 11. So whereas in this mall specifically, which is the office district, what we created is creating spaces that the mall may open at 11 o'clock, but there's a section of it will open at 7 o'clock in the morning. The reason is because what we want is the woman who's working, the person who's working can come in, pick up, have a breakfast, go to the deli, pick up his thing, go back home. The morning walker comes in, finishes his morning walk, picks up the fresh bread, goes back home from the supermarket. The lady who's dropped her kids to school wants to go back home, cook, can pick up fresh vegetables. She just forgotten there's a dinner at home. She wants to pick up the meat, but she wants to do it in the morning. Why does she have to wake at 11 o'clock for the supermarket to open in the mall and then go pick up things?
Fair point. I mean, sometimes I've actually wondered why don't these so-called mall owners or the retail brands inside the mall learn from the Udupi guys who actually open at 6 o'clock and they do roaring business till 9 o'clock, till office hours. I mean, somebody has to crack that model. But just to understand, is there a 24/7 mall in India? 24/7?
There is none. In fact, there are not even 24/7 stores in India, only very few in certain pockets in this country. The reason is because of our legislation requirement. It's not that retailers have not expressed interest to open up stores or F&B stores particularly, and cafes and farm. It's only very exceptional cities allow 24/7 in certain categories also. And that also if you have to put a pharmacy alongside and do something jing-bang along with it. To do it.
Interesting. So you see the relationship changing, but it could have a far greater potential. And as Pramod was saying, more experimentation is what is needed. Let me add a different dimension to this discussion, which is what we witnessed yesterday in the inaugural session about online retailing. And that's where the whole 24/7, 365 on my device being present, even though the consumption, like let's say for a product like Javier might not happen. But let me start with you. You said the online thing gets in ticketing going, gets in some discounting methods bring in. But Javier, how do you really use technology to fulfill that consumption need, even though your businesses are more weekend-led?
Well, as I mentioned, all these ideas have to converge in technology. You have to be present, providing your service or your product in online. A way of doing that, even if you don't charge for that, because not necessarily you have to do that, providing information, providing entertainment through social media, making people come to your Facebook page, to your Twitter account to get news, to get news about the industry, to get clips, to get trailers, to get promotions, to get information in general.
But eventually the aggregators will also hurt you, or is it like you've worked out that model? Somebody like Book My Show, they are kind of agnostic to the kind of brand offering that you may have. How are you managing that play? Because the aggregators are eventually ending up making a lot more money because they are...
Page.
Right.
That could make a difference.
So you're saying
you don't have to
use,
switch.
Yeah, you have to use technology to innovate as you go along. Hold your thought there. I want to come back to you because it's all about, your offering is about in-store experience in some way. Sudhir, let me come back to you. Kids are online all the time. And Javier has an interesting dilemma, which is that eventually consumption of his product is in-store. So is yours in a lot of ways. Delivering a kid a toy is no fun. So how are you using technology to make it an enabler or make it actually a profitable enabler as you go along?
It's, as I said earlier, it's a wholly integrated marketing approach that we follow, and it's all about delivering that value proposition to the customer. So while, you know, there are many times people ask me as to, are you selling toys? My answer is no, we are not selling toys. My product is experience. Right? So it's an experiential process that you're trying to take the customer through when the customer is at the store. Now your question comes more from the point that once the customer has left your store after spending that time, then how do you really keep in touch with that customer? How do you stay connected with the customer? So here's where we, like he said, the social media marketing, the viral campaigns is something which we use very, very heavily. As you said very rightly, the children are online virtually all the time these days. They are connected. And there are a lot of these activations, a lot of events that we absolutely run using only the online campaigns. There is nothing else. There is no other press or TV that we get into. It's only online campaigns. I mean, there are very successful events that we have created, virtually just by going online. And our Facebook page, I mean, though we were a late sort of entrant into the whole thing, we started pretty late, but now the number really astonishes us. You know, the kind of visits to the page and the kind of members that we have, it's really surprising. So, yeah, there is no substitute for the kind of product that we are in, okay, and the kind of that ethos which we operate with, which is experience at the store, which you deliver through various things, whether it's your unique store design, whether it's your people who are, or whether it's your costume characters, or whether the kind of drama that you try and create. There is no substitute to that, okay.
So, I mean, given that I'm new in the business of trying to get to Hamleys now because I'm a new father, but let me flip this question around. And for you, Pushkaraj, is that eventually if the consumption of the product is in store, technology is only a added layer, but there could be a game-changing idea. Your service, for example, could have a new online element to it. How critical is online for you, let's say, and not about marketing, or as Javier and Sudhir said, not about kind of being present in the mind space, but actually delivery of that service. Do you think technology is helping you in that field?
So, first, again, another context. We are present in about 50 cities. We are present in cities like Taran and obviously, you know, places like Bandra and South Ek. So, what's relevant when you use technology in a Taran or a Firozpur, Hoshiarpur is very different from what's relevant in South X. So obviously we try and scale it down to that market. We do this whole bit of, you know, engaging consumers, using social media. Obviously Facebook has now made it very difficult to use the fan page to engage regularly with them. But we do that whole bit. The place where I think it really makes a difference is if you can take the risk out of the consumer taking a particular look. Right? So in some of our salons, we use an application which allows you to simulate what you will look like if you were taking a haircut, a color, or, you know, that kind of a combination. That takes the risk out. The consumer knows before going in for that service what she's going to look like. Recently, we launched a collection that we are very proud of. So at the last Lakme Fashion Week, we launched the show-stopping hair collection. That was there were three themes, and those were our signature looks. Again, there you can simulate and you can understand what you would look like if were you to go for any of those looks. That whole collection was marketed only in the digital and social space. We did no offline kind of thing on that. The other thing that we did on that, so I'll just complete the last bit, is that we also crowdsourced ideas on that one. And again, we use technology to do that.
All right, so technology is an important part, but Pramod, again, capital has to chase ideas where technology can no longer be. But yet, in the last 2 days, I felt some of the traditional retailers are a little wary of technology. I mean, I was at the panel yesterday and I saw the Amazon and the Snapdeal guy, to my understanding, talk a different language than what the traditional retailers do. How is capital making that choice?
So, unfortunately, you use the right word, technology, as an enabler. So, when we talk about technology as an enabler, most of the retailers, including the bigger of the brand names, are not being able to use the power or the capability of technology to aid their revenues or to aid their profitability. A process, a very simple process like a CRM, which begins from a KYC, is still not being done by many of the large retailers. So, when there is a sale of a salwar kameez or a sari, I do end up getting an SMS, why don't you come and buy it? So they don't even know about that I'm a male or a female. So which primarily gets generated from a KYC, you know your customer. Start using tools like predictive intelligence to engage with him. And post that, you could come out with a lot of innovations. The technology today is, let's say in a business like that of cinemas, if you're in a mall, most of the mobiles now come with a chip which is near field communication. You can send push notifications even at the last moment if your house is not full, provided you have a CRM which is working or a KYC which is working. You know your customer, he's there, and you can shoot in a message, hey, why don't you come and watch a movie? I'm ready to offer you a discount, or an ABC offer which is there, which could be beyond the pricing parameterization. As Lakme is doing, wherein they're talking about an app which can suggest that if you get this haircut done, this is how you would look. Very interesting, very exciting. In the field of cinemas, you have a premiere happening at one of your cinemas, and you have 100 more locations wherein the download is instant. You can show it live. You're connecting with your consumer. He becomes loyal to you. Now, what really happens is when you talk about people like BMS, they're channel partners. They're not there to create an impact of your brand or to create a recall for your brand. That is something that you yourself have to work around. And then that channel partner can be to your benefit, because if the recall has been created by you and there's a channel partner, he's just helping aid your sales. So, the retailers who are taking that approach is where the capital is going to follow. Flipkart showed the path.
Right.
Snapdeal did show the path, and many of the e-retailers are showing that path. The convergence of physical and e-retail, the day it happens, many of the physical retailers would be sitting on a huge upside in their cash flows.
But do you see that, what according to you is the resistance point? Let me ask you that.
So, the resistance today, according to me, is intellect. It's the intellect. Gaining that intellect to get into that space and then doing the things the way you suggested, that you met up with some people who are talking a very different language. When you say those sort of words, it straight away comes that the intellect is lacking amongst the physical side of retailers to be able to take this and take this by a storm.
Interesting talk about technology. I'm going to throw this open to the audience for a few questions, but before that, Deepak and Pankaj, I want to bring in the last layer which sits on top of this, is the way advertising and branding plays a role. And first to you, Deepak, it is a critical part, everybody knows that, but when you bring in this whole mall play and the real estate play, it is great to be seeing advertising when I'm inside a mall. But then when I leave, that whole 24/7, 365 connect, when I leave, how much of it is being taken back, and how are brands adapting to that surrounding the 360-degree approach as we talked about?
So yeah, I think I'll pick this from where Pankaj left off as to why certain parts of the mall should be open at 7 a.m. and be connected with the consumer from 7 to 9, 11 at night. And I just while we were discussing, I just thought of or rather remembered something which a company in Korea has done, and they've done it phenomenally well. What they're trying to do is, they know online presence and online and technology to get there is very, very important. But how do you sync that offline and the online? The offline consumer habits that we like and the technology part of the online also that we like. How do we put both of these together? And what they've done, so working women, working men, metro stations, there's a big connect amongst all these three put together. Metros are used very frequently to connect internationally, also now New Delhi and many other cities of this country. So they've built kiosks, okay, real life-size kiosks, just looking like supermarkets, with merchandise displayed just the way you would see them on shelves in a supermarket. You walk into the metro, you're just going onwards to your platform, you go there, you select what you want cornflakes, you want your milk, you want whatever, and you move to your metro because you hardly have those 2, 3, 4 minutes moving from one platform to the other. While you're moving, so you've selected and then you've clicked on where you want it delivered, how you want it. While you're in the metro, that syncs with the app that you have on your phone, where you now tell them what time you would like this to get delivered and what time you're going to be back from home. But you forgot that you had a 7 p.m. meeting and you had clicked that you want delivery at 7:30. So closer to your meeting at 6 o'clock, when you get that reminder for your 7 p.m. meeting, you make a change because by now you're actually tracking that your deliveries have left the distribution center. Okay, they're on the way to your house, but they're giving you the opportunity to change the time to deliver because there was a change in your schedule for the day.
Right.
And the goods reach home by the time you're there. I mean, so fantastic, you know, sync between the offline look, feel, touch, and then keeping you connected from 7 a.m. in the morning till you actually get your delivery with that brand, advertising,
so
marketing.
the brand is moving alongside with you.
With you,
yeah.
and your day, and your routine, and your schedule for the day. You know?
So it's not a static brand, it's traveling along with me, using technology, as Pramod said, somebody who's like,
Right.
Pankaj, a quick word on the way this kind of innovative ideas in even branding, which then carries along with me. I mean, I personally feel like as a consumer, and I'm not an expert like you guys are, but I feel the taxi guys have done a fantastic job. They actually can tell me at any given time who's the closest. I think to me as a retail customer, I think they have done the most phenomenal job in the country right now, whether it's Uber or it's Ola or whoever, this whole two-touch booking and then tracking me all along. They travel with me all the time. But Pankaj, your quick word on that, how advertising has to go through that chain.
See, when the current way the advertising is being done in malls, these are being looking at, putting people in a box. So they're trying to capture the mind share of that customer when he's captured in that box. So you're bombarding him with brands which are present in the mall. So there is signages of those brands which are there. Then there are these new product launches, or say Samsung is launching a new TV and he puts it up in the atrium of the mall. Or if, for example, like a brand like Macme has a new collection of lipsticks and they just want to do something kind of promotions. There are some girls who go and say, you want to try the new perfume? Why don't you smell it out? Why don't you try it? So there's some kind of promotions which is going there. So it is, till now, the promotion and activity is happening very localized to the environment of the mall in which you are in. And in some cases, some big car which is getting launched in the market would come and display it there and the others. But it's still essentially capturing the customer who's coming inside. When he leaves that center, there is very limited right now which he's taking in. But eventually it will come in. The reason is because currently the competition level between malls is limited, because you go to a sub-market, there's typically one mall. There may be exceptions like a city like Pune, which has got one road which got 5 or 6 malls, but typically in each sub-market there's only one mall, and he knows the customer will come back to him because I only have the availability of those brands or the entertainment or the F&B or the others. But eventually what will happen is the life of that customer will get synced off, because internationally, which you look at it, in 10 minutes is the driving time or the radius of customers who come into a mall, typically. In India, it may be a little more distance of 20 minutes. So your actual 60 to 70% of your audience of that mall is residing the 20 minutes radius, either is working there or living there. You have to keep making sure that he comes back to you on a regular basis. Then he goes online or the others. So what will happen is eventually some malls have started doing is they always have the fan page. They're sending out regular emailers to their customers who have registered with them and kind of trying to build up a loyalty program so that they get the customer back. On the back of that channel, they're also using to promote promotions for those products or brands which are probably in the mall or are looking to come into the mall as well. So they are trying to capture the mindset when the customer has also left the mall. But that link is still yet to be developed or exploited in a bigger way.
But at least the potential lies there. And as Pramod said, if you marry technology into all that experience, that's okay, we have time for about a few questions. All right. Questions, anybody? How to capture 24/7, 365 mindset? Questions, show of hands. Anyone? Looks like everybody's satisfied with what you heard. No questions? Anyone? Can I pose a question to the audience? Am I allowed to pose questions to the audience? Or is that the other way around? Any questions, sir? Can I ask you something? So let me ask you, how much of technology do you use to consume a retail brand? Or is it only for services like a taxi service or whatever? Do you use technology to do that at all? Sorry? I absolutely do it. Give us an example. So let me ask you, do you feel malls and retail brands are doing it enough, or is it only convenience services like taxis?
I think the retail brands they're giving better offers online comparatively that they do at the store. But the difference in a store and online is that a store you get to experience the product that you're going to purchase, which is kind of lacking online. Because if I were going out to a store to purchase a particular shirt or trousers, I can feel the material. Where online, I just look at the stuff and I have to decide whether I should buy this or not. The only thing that attracts me online is the offers attached to the brand.
How much do you spend in terms of time online? Let me ask you. How much time do you spend online?
I spend like 4 days a week online.
4 days a week?
Yeah.
Wow. She's a great customer. So let me ask you, Deepak. She said, the experience I get in the store, I do not get online. How can we solve her dilemma? Because she's like, majority of her time she's spending online through a mobile device or, I guess, on a desktop.
I think that's the question that everybody's trying to crack. How do we do it? And the example I gave of the Korean company, they're coming as close as possible to trying to do that. So the user experience, wherever touch and feel plays a very, very critical and important role of the consumer taking his buying decision. It's very difficult.
Pramod, she typifies a perfect customer.
Perfect customer.
She's a perfect customer. She's waiting to be tapped.
Actually, yeah. So these are the customers, most of the customers are looking forward to that convergence of the physical retail format with the e-retail format, which retailers unfortunately have not been able to provide to the satisfaction of the consumers. But there's a way to do that. If you were to use the technology effectively, the way the e-retailers are doing it, most tend to believe that most likely the situation would be that the physical retailers would end up taking the cake, and that will be a much larger cake wherein you can touch, feel, see the product, and there is an e-strategy dominating over that. That is the way, but that convergence has to come in.
Cinepolis, how would you make sure that you're able to show her at least a trailer online and lure her to Cinepolis?
So no, what I was going to say is not, she's a great customer, but the trend is that we'll get more and more customers like her. That's a trend that we have to accept. And I believe that in the brick and mortar world, we have to change that mindset of technology being an enabler to effectively use technology as a distribution mean. Why do we talk about the e-retailers and the brick and mortar retailers? At the end, the technology should be a distribution medium through which you will be distributing your product, right? And because the trend is that every time people will spend more and more time online, and you have to be able to deliver your service or your product, either if it's a trailer or if you have to change the product that you sell through those mediums. If you have to be innovative and develop entertainment online and be able to get money out of that and make it a profitable business, I guess that's the game changer for all of us in the brick and mortar world.
It may lead to a change in the business model for yourself as well. Eventually offering the experience in a hall to then becoming an experience offering online.
That's why I mentioned at the beginning that you have to be loyal to your vision. If we sell tickets for a particular movie in a movie hall, or do we provide entertainment? So we are in the entertainment business. One of the verticals, it's going physically to a cinema hall. But you can also provide entertainment on a much different way.
All right.
Just one sec on this. If I have a consumer like her in cinemas, who is basically online for 4 days, and if I have her data, the predictive intelligence tools are going to work wonderfully well for me. Whenever she is online, my brand can interact and engage with her. in a communication which is a two-way communication, wherein I can basically suggest or give that idea or a suggestion, why don't you come watch this movie? You're a Tom Cruise fan, why don't you let me basically give you this as a choice? You're an XYZ fan, this is the film which is coming in a while, why don't I give you that option to pre-book because you may not get the tickets on the first day. So I have a large opportunity to engage with her 4 days in a week, which is like my brand getting, right at her fingertips.
But the question is, and we could end it on that challenging note, is that how many brands are willing to think that deep? Well, there are brands who are doing it, but not too many think it that deep. Getting a customer 4 days a week in a captive environment, which is a device, I think it's like a gold mine. I mean, I can hit a gold mine if I use technology and think in a tech way rather than just thinking what is my brand about to do. But I'll end it on that note. Thank you guys for joining us and for this fascinating panel. I think you're a perfect customer for a focus group, so please log in with them and see how they can resolve your problem. Thank you all. A round of applause for the panelists. Thanks for being here.